Hey guys, welcome back to Meant for Greater. As we continue our series on the book Psycho-Cybernetics, this video will focus on Chapter 7. From the previous videos, we've learned a lot of great information, including techniques that will help us become better versions of ourselves. If you wouldn't mind dropping a like on this video, it really helps push our videos out to more people. Also, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let's jump right back in. Chapter 7. You can acquire the habit of happiness. In this chapter, I want to discuss with you the subject of happiness, not from a philosophical, but from a medical standpoint. Dr. John A. Schindler's definition of happiness is a state of mind in which our thinking is pleasant a good share of the time. From a medical standpoint, and also from an ethical standpoint, I do not believe that simple definition can be improved upon. It is what we are talking about in this chapter. Happiness is native to the human mind and its physical machine. We think better, perform better, feel better, and are healthier when we are happy. Even our physical sense organs work better. Russian psychologist K. Kiechev tested people when they were thinking pleasant and unpleasant thoughts. He found that when thinking pleasant thoughts, they could see better, taste, smell, and hear better, and detect finer differences in touch. Dr. William Bates proved that eyesight improves immediately when the individual is thinking pleasant thoughts or visualizing pleasant scenes. Margaret Corbett has found that memory is greatly improved and that the mind is relaxed when the subject is thinking pleasant thoughts. Psychosomatic medicine has proved that our stomachs, liver, heart, and all our internal organs function better when we are happy. Thousands of years ago, wise old King Solomon said this in Proverbs, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth up the bones." It is significant, too, that both Judaism and Christianity prescribe joy, rejoicing, thankfulness, cheerfulness as a means towards righteousness and the good life. He goes on to mention some studies conducted correlating happiness and criminality that unsurprisingly found that most criminals came from unhappy homes and had histories of unhappy relationships. He points out that we are usually told that if we're good, kind, and loving towards others, then we will be happy. He argues that if we are happy, then we will be good, kind, and loving towards others. He says that happiness is not something that is earned or deserved. Happiness is simply a state of mind in which our thinking is pleasant a good share of the time. If you wait until you deserve to think pleasant thoughts, you are likely to think unpleasant thoughts concerning your own unworthiness. Many sincere people are deterred from seeking happiness because they feel that it would be selfish or wrong. He points out that being unselfish in its own right makes us happy, but by attempting to be unhappy for the sake of becoming happy, or to feel deserving of happiness, is absolutely absurd. We are never living, but only hoping to live and looking forward always to being happy. We are never living, but only hoping to live and looking forward always to being happy. It is inevitable that we never are so, said Pascal. I have found that one of the most commonest causes of unhappiness among my patients is that they are attempting to live their lives on the deferred payment plan. They do not live nor enjoy life now, but wait for some future event or occurrence. They will be happy when they get married, or when they get a better job, when they get the house paid for, when they get the children through college, when they have completed some task or won some victory. Invariably, they are disappointed. Guys, this hits so close to home for me. I realized that I was doing just exactly this in my own life. I was waiting for some undetermined time in the future to be happy, to start enjoying life. I was able to recognize that no matter what I accomplished, the finish line would always just be pushed down the road further. And when that happens, now I won't be happy until something else happens. He goes on, happiness is a mental habit, a mental attitude. If it's not learned and practiced in the present, it is never experienced. It cannot be made contingent upon solving some external problem. When one problem is solved, another appears to take its place. Life is a series of problems. If you are to be happy at all, you must be happy, period. Not happy because of. Most people are about as happy as they make their minds up to be, said Abraham Lincoln. Happiness is purely internal. It is produced not by objects but by ideas, thoughts, and attitudes which can be developed and constructed by the individual's own activities, irrespective of the environment. No one other than a saint can be 100% happy all the time, and as George Bernard Shaw quipped, we would probably be miserable if we were. But we can, by taking thought and making a simple decision, be happy and think pleasant thoughts a large share of the time regarding that multitude of little events and circumstances of daily living which now make us unhappy. To a large extent, we react to petty annoyances, frustrations, and the like with grumpiness, dissatisfaction, resentment, and irritability, purely out of habit. We have practiced reacting that way so long it has become habitual. Much of this habitual unhappiness reaction originated because of some event which we interpreted as a blow to our self-esteem. A driver honks his horn at us unnecessarily. Someone interrupts and doesn't pay attention while we are talking. Someone doesn't come through for us and we think he should. Even impersonal events can be interpreted and reacted to as affronts to our self-esteem. The bus we wanted to catch had to be late. It had to go and rain when we had planned to golf. Traffic had to get into a snarl just when we needed to catch the plane. We react with anger, resentment, self-pity, or in other words, unhappiness. The best cure I have found for this sort of thing is to use unhappiness's own weapon, self-esteem. Have you ever been to a TV show and seen the master of ceremonies manipulate the audience? I asked a patient. He brings out a sign which says applause and everyone applauds. He brings out another sign which says laughter and everyone laughs. They act like sheep, as if they were slaves, and meekly react as they are told to react. You are acting in the same way. You are letting outward events and other people dictate how you should feel and how you shall react. You are acting as an obedient slave and obeying promptly when some event or circumstances signals you to be angry, get upset, or now's the time to feel unhappy. This is a great point, and I think it should make us review how we have let outside circumstances or people control our emotions. We all like to think that we are the masters of our own lives, but if you allow someone else to control how you feel emotionally, you are anything but that. Anytime that we get upset or angry with someone, we effectively hand over control of our lives to that person. Learning the happiness habit, you become a master instead of a slave, or as Robert Louis Stevenson said, the habit of being happy enables one to be freed, or largely freed from the domination of outward conditions. Even in regard to tragic conditions and the most adverse environment, we can usually manage to be happier, if not completely happy, by not adding to the misfortune our own feelings of self-pity, resentment, and our own adverse opinions. How can I be happy? The wife of an alcoholic husband asked me. I don't know, I said, but you can be happier by resolving not to add resentment and self-pity to your misfortune. How can I possibly be happy? Asked a businessman. I have just lost $200,000 in the stock market. I'm ruined and disgraced. You can be happier, I said, by not adding your own opinion to the facts. It is a fact that you lost $200,000. It is an opinion that you are ruined and disgraced. I then suggested that he memorize a saying of Epictetus, which has always been a favorite of mine. Men are disturbed, said the sage, not by things that happen, but by their opinion of the things that happen. That's good. That is really, really good. Men are disturbed not by the things that happen, but by their opinions of the things that happen. This is how you can have two people in the exact same circumstance with two wildly different viewpoints. He then said when he decided to become a doctor, he was told that he could not because his parents had no money. He reminded himself that that was an opinion. All throughout his life, it was suggested to him that he could not do this or that, and he always reminded himself that these impossibles were not facts, but rather opinions. He then said this, which I had to laugh at. I was in love with a beautiful girl. She married someone else. These were facts, but I kept reminding myself that it was merely my opinion that this was a catastrophe and that my life was not worth living. I not only got over it, but it turned out that it was one of the luckiest things that ever happened to me. A lot of the times when we're in the midst of our woes, we can't see the good in what has happened. It's only upon reflection that we can realize what a blessing certain struggles were in our lives. It has been pointed out earlier that since man is a goal-striving being, he is functioning naturally and normally when he's oriented towards some positive goal and striving towards some desirable goal. Happiness is a symptom of normal, natural functioning and when man is functioning as a goal striver, he tends to feel fairly happy, regardless of circumstances. My young business executive friend was very unhappy because he had lost $200,000. Thomas A. Edison lost a laboratory worth millions in a fire with no insurance. "What in the world will you do now?" someone asked. "We will start rebuilding tomorrow morning," said Edison. He maintained an aggressive attitude. He was still goal-oriented despite his misfortune. And because he did maintain an aggressive goal-striving attitude, it is a good bet that he was never unhappy about the loss. Looking back on my own life, he says, I can see that some of the happiest years were those when I was struggling through as a medical student and living from hand to mouth in my early days of practice. Many times I was hungry, I was cold and ill-clad. I worked hard, a minimum of about 12 hours a day. Many times I did not know from month to month where the money was coming from to pay my rent. But I did have a goal. I had a consuming desire to reach it, and a determined persistence which kept me working towards it. I related all this to the young business executive and suggested that the real cause of his unhappy feeling was not that he had lost $200,000, but that he had lost his goal. He had lost his aggressive attitude and was yielding passively rather than reacting aggressively. "I must have been crazy," he told me later, "to let you convince me that losing the money was not what was making me unhappy, but I'm awfully glad that you did." He stopped moaning about his misfortune, faced about, got himself another goal, and worked toward it. Within 5 years, he not only had more money than ever before in his life, but for the first time he was in a business that he enjoyed. Here we can see that when you dwell on misfortune, it can cripple you and take you out of the race. If you truly have a goal, nothing should be able to stop you from completing it. No amount of roadblocks will stop you if you maintain that aggressive goal-striving attitude. A practice exercise for you is to form the habit of reacting aggressively and positively toward threats and problems. Form the habit of keeping goal-oriented all the time, regardless of what happens. See yourself in your imagination taking positive, intelligent action towards solving a problem or reaching a goal. See yourself reacting to threats, not by running away or passively allowing them to incapacitate you, but by meeting them, dealing with them, grappling with them in an aggressive and intelligent manner. The idea that happiness, or keeping one's thoughts pleasant most of the time, can be done deliberately and systematically in a pragmatic or cold-blooded way is to many people shocking. Yet experience has shown not only that this can be done, but it's about the only way the habit of happiness can be cultivated. We are learning that happiness is not something that happens to you, but rather something that you decide to do for yourself. He offers this anecdote. A young salesman had made up his mind to quit his job when he consulted me about an operation on his nose. His nose was slightly larger than normal, but certainly not repulsive as he insisted. He felt that prospects were secretly laughing at his nose or repulsed because of it. It was a fact that he had a large nose. It was a fact that 3 customers had called in to complain of his rude and hostile behavior. It was a fact that his boss had placed him on probation and that he hadn't made a sale in 2 weeks. Instead of an operation on his nose, I suggested that he perform surgery on his own thinking. For 30 days, he was to cut out all these negative thoughts. He was to completely ignore all the negative and unpleasant quote-unquote facts in his situation and deliberately focus his attention upon pleasant thoughts. At the end of 30 days, he not only felt better, but he found that prospects and customers had become much more friendly. His sales were steadily increasing, and his boss had publicly congratulated him in a sales meeting. This method alone could change your life forever. If you just weed out the negative things that you keep telling yourself, you will be happier and more successful in every aspect of your life. He then tells us how we may develop the habit of happiness. Our self-image and our habits tend to go together. Change one and you will automatically change the other. The word habit originally meant garment or clothing. We still speak of riding habits and habiliments. This gives us an insight into the true nature of habit. Our habits are literally garments worn by our personality. They are not accidental or happenstance. We have them because they fit us. They are consistent with our self-image and our entire personality pattern. When we consciously and deliberately develop new and better habits, our self-image tends to outgrow the old habits and grow into the new pattern. I can see many patients cringe when I mention changing habitual action patterns or acting out new behavior patterns until they become automatic. They confuse habit with addiction. An addiction is something you feel compelled to and which causes severe withdrawal symptoms. Treatment of addiction is beyond the scope of this book. Habits, on the other hand, are merely reactions and responses which we have learned to perform automatically without having to think or decide. They are performed by our creative mechanism. Fully 95% of our behavior, feeling, and response is habitual. The pianist does not decide which keys to strike. The dancer does not decide which foot to move where. Their reaction is automatic and unthinking. In much the same way, our attitudes, emotions, and beliefs tend to become habitual. In the past, we learned that certain attitudes, ways of feeling, and thinking were appropriate to certain situations. Now we tend to think, feel, and act the same way whenever we encounter what we interpret as the same sort of situation. He says that changing a habit requires only a conscious decision and practice by acting out the new response or behavior. Okay, guys, it's time for this chapter's practice exercise. Habitually, you put on either your right shoe first or your left shoe. Habitually, you tie your shoes by either passing the right hand lace around behind the left hand lace or vice versa. Tomorrow morning, determine which shoe you put on first and how you tie your shoes. Now consciously decide that for the next 21 days, you're going to form a new habit by putting on the other shoe first and tying your laces in a different way. Now each morning as you decide to put on your shoes in a certain manner, let this simple act serve as a reminder to change other habitual ways of thinking, acting, and feeling throughout the day. Say to yourself as you tie your shoes, I am beginning the day in a new and better way. Then consciously decide that throughout the day, 1. I will be as cheerful as possible. 2. I will try to feel and act a little more friendly toward other people. 3. I am going to be a little less critical and a little more tolerant of other people, their faults, failings, and mistakes. I will place the best possible interpretation upon their actions. 4. Insofar as possible, I am going to act as if success were inevitable, and I am already the sort of personality I want to be. I will practice acting like and feeling like this new personality. 5. I will not let my own opinion color facts in a pessimistic or negative way. 6. I will practice smiling at least 3 times during the day. 7. Regardless of what happens, I will react as calmly and as intelligently as possible. 8. I will ignore completely and close my mind to all those pessimistic and negative facts which I can do nothing to change. Simple? Yes. But each of the above habitual ways of acting, feeling, thinking does have beneficial and constructive influence on your self-image. Act them out for 21 days, experience them, and see if worry, guilt, hostility have not been diminished and if confidence has not been increased. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. That was Chapter 7 of Psycho-Cybernetics, Decide to Be Happy. That was the takeaway for today. I really hope you enjoyed it. I also hope that you will decide to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos. Drop a like on this video to help with the YouTube algorithm, and I can't wait to see you guys on the next one. Talk soon.